Hello Rebrand gang, and welcome to episode 43 of Rebrand Everything, the weekly graphic design show where we redesign the logo of big or famous companies. Today we're going to be looking at redesigning the Spotify logo, and thanks to Brendan and Renan for submitting this idea over on rebrandeverything.com. Let's go. I'm pretty sure that almost everyone is familiar with the brand Spotify. It's a music streaming service and it's probably the most famous one. I'm also pretty sure that most people know that Spotify's current logo looks like this. But have you ever noticed that the icon is just a little bit wonky inside that circle? It's one of them things where once you see it, you can't unsee it, and it's kind of really irritating. Apparently the reason for this is they wanted to keep some of the quirky character from their old logos, and there's also this conspiracy theory that by making the logo slightly imperfect, it sort of causes your eyes to stop when everything around it looks perfect, and that one suddenly is like a little angle that just kind of like jars your eyes. It makes you look at the logo for longer, and I'm pretty sure that is a conspiracy theory, but it also sounds like it might hold some water. If we look back at the Spotify logo history, you'll see that their first one that was used from 2008 till 2013, you can see some resemblance to today's logo, but it's kind of just much more quirky and sort of looks very dated now. From 2013 to 2015, they had this sort of like more 3D looking logo. They used two different colours. They used the green on the icon and the black on the text, but you can actually also see that they've got a gradient within that icon, which again looks slightly dated now. But this logo here is essentially the same as their current one. They've just done a little bit of flattening and sort of like cleaning up that look. Their current logo is generally pretty good. It's contemporary without being too like edgy and try hard. But if I had to criticise it just a little bit, it would be the fact that the sound waves are wonky. It's just irritating. It's kind of like if you're going to do something wonky, I just feel like it should either be a little bit more so it's definite, or completely straight so it's perfect. I feel like that just tiny little like wonkiness about it is just too small to really be worthwhile. And also I'm not sure about the curve on these sound waves. It just looks like it's just kind of clashing with the outer circle, so maybe we'll look at sort of curving them over a little bit more. And there's one more thing as well, and that is the line thicknesses of the sound waves. This sort of mix of thicknesses just doesn't gel well for my eyes, and it's just kind of annoying. I mean, generally when I look at the logo just day to day, because I use Spotify, it's fine. But when you look at it and spend a little bit more time than usual sort of looking at the logo, you just start to see these annoying little things. The colours are good and the text is good. I'm pretty sure this font on this is a variation on Gotham, which is quite cool. Okay then, so let's get on with sketching out some ideas. So at the sketching stage, I was looking at ways of developing the current icon in the ways that I was saying earlier, like maybe curving them lines a little bit more so it fits more comfortably within the circle, making it not wonky anymore because it's just kind of irritating, and I think cleaning that up will be a good improvement. And then I was also thinking up some completely new avenues we can go down. Some things that were sort of like ticking over in my mind as I was drawing this out is that I don't want the logo to be confused with the Wi-Fi logo. I think if I curve them lines too much, it's going to suddenly look like some sort of wireless signal logo instead of like music sound waves. So I don't want to sort of blur that line. Another thing to think about is their old logo that you've just seen in the logo history. Although it's completely wild, there might be some ideas that we can take from that. Perhaps reintroducing like a slab serif font might work, and like that might be a nice throwback to like their earlier logos. I also drew out quite a lot of other icon ideas, just looking at ways to illustrate like the music theme, perhaps looking at like the sharing and streaming aspect of it, all whilst trying to keep that sort of brand familiarity that Spotify have built up. If you are enjoying this video, please don't forget to press like on it. It really helps the channel out. And also, if you like watching the graphic design process, I recently uploaded a different kind of video. Check out the redesigning subscriber logos video I uploaded this week. It's a bit longer, but it goes more into sort of my real-time process, and I show you like step by step how I make the changes to the logos. Let's get on with the video. So for option 1, I essentially just wanted to clean up the current Spotify logo, taking away that wonkiness, sorting out the curve on the lines, and just generally making it a little bit cleaner and tidier. So I straightened up the icon by creating circles and then using like this triangle as like a cookie cutter over there, and basically just trialed and errored it until the lines looked more curved. So just by changing the size of the main circle and then just using the shape builder tool and the pathfinder tools just to cut the section out that I wanted. The more curved lines seem to fit a little bit more comfortably within the circle without being so curved that it gets into that like of Wi-Fi territory, so I thought that was all good. And also when I was doing this, I updated the line thicknesses to be consistent with each other, so one, I think it was 15-point stroke for all of the lines, so I just don't feel like we need that mix of line thicknesses. Another thing I did was also move the registered mark to the bottom right, so it sits in that kind of dead space made by the angle on the tail of the Y. I just thought that cleaned up the silhouette and make it easier to align to the right hand side on like the collateral and stuff. And then next to the text, I reduced the size of the actual main icon slightly, as it just looked a little bit too big next to the word mark. And also you might see here that I tried some options with the sound waves in the actual O, but I decided not to go with them for option 1, but keep watching the video and you might see something come from that.
2.
So for option 2, I wanted to create something a little bit more abstract that I thought would develop really nicely into the rest of their branding. Originally I was thinking of a circular logo that had like circles within it, symbolising people sort of sharing music from a single source, so kind of, I guess in its most basic form it would be 4 people, like a top-down view of 4 people with a speaker in the middle, something like that. Just super simple and super symbolic. As it developed, I decided against the sound waves from the centre, as it started getting a little bit like crowded and just looking a little bit messy. But I did see a different opportunity to keep the icon looking abstract whilst also allowing the shapes to create like this subtle S shape. By adding in the line, like the crossbar across the centre of the circle, it linked the 2 people like in the middle together in a secondary way, and I thought that worked quite nicely. For the text I used Circular Black. Circular is the font that Spotify use like in-app anyway, so it feels like a nice progression and it still will retain some of that brand familiarity and sort of recognition, just because you kind of see their adverts and it's using that font, so if their logo changed to that, maybe they'd change the actual advert font, I don't know, but just thought it might tie in nicely. And then also, as this option was sort of heading towards like the connection of human beings, that sort of concept and that sort of vibe, I thought adjusting the green would help swing the balance from like contemporary tech company to something a little bit more warm and friendly. So just basically went into the CMYK mode and just added a little bit more yellow into that green just to give it that little boost, little warm up.
3.
So I went into option 3 with kind of a loose idea that I was going to create some sort of S icon out of sound waves. I tried a few different layouts, but they all felt a little bit sort of old and retro, which I didn't feel was the correct look for a company like that's fast moving and like up and current like Spotify. So to remedy this, I tried a few different adaptations of these designs, adding like softer edges, maybe adding space in, but they still didn't look right when I compared it to kind of like the image that I had in my mind. So as I was developing, I had another look at my sketches for some like just little on-the-go inspiration. And I saw this little headphone icon that I thought could be duplicated and kind of like interlocked to create something that resembles an S. So I worked on that for a little while and I got the proportions looking quite nice, and I spent quite a lot of time with the spacing within the circle, and I thought that was looking good and I was feeling pretty comfortable with that. But then I thought that the last 2 options had circular icons to the left of text, and I don't just want to keep doing the same thing. I want these options to look a little bit different rather than just sort of using this one style, one design sort of style. And also someone in the comments the other day made a good point that I always seem to sort of put icons in a shape, and they called it suffocating the design, and I think that's a pretty good point, so I'm making a conscious effort to not do that on this option. So with this in mind, I tried removing the circle, and then with a little bit of fiddling I thought it looked really nice alongside the Gotham rounded font.
4.
So for option 4, I started out by wanting to create something that looked really like premium and had a little throwback to their old logo by putting the sound wave on top of the O. So I was kind of thinking that sort of like, you know, that premium look where it's all caps. Maybe you track it out wide and use something like Futura Light. I know it's a little bit cliche, but I just thought it could work, so I wanted to try it out. But when I did this, it just didn't feel like it fitted the vibe of Spotify. It just seemed to look unbalanced due to the fact that the O wasn't in the centre, and just generally it looked a little bit dull and boring. So I remembered that in the first option, I'd created an alternative version where the icon was like within the letter O, which is something that I wouldn't normally do and normally do advise against, but I just thought that I liked how it looked when I tried it in option 1, so I thought I might be able to make it work for this option. So basically what I'm trying to say is, in the end, the idea was completely different. My thin and classy style idea ended up using Futura Bold and then putting an icon within the text, something that I would normally always advise against, but I don't know, let me know what you think in the comments.
5.
I wanted to get a little bit experimental for option 5 and try and create some sort of play button shape out of other shapes. I started out by trying to make like this letter S because I'd made it at the sketching stage and I thought it looked alright. I felt like it was room for development. But however, when I actually tried to build it, however I was doing it, it always just seemed to look a little bit unbalanced or kind of like too sharp and edgy. And then when I round the ends off, it just didn't flow nicely and I just wasn't warming to it. So I tried a sound wave idea which looked way too complex at first, as there was about, I don't know, 10 lines going through it, or maybe even more than that. But overall, I did kind of like the concept. I thought it definitely had potential to look quite cool and iconic. So I removed half of the lines and made the lines fatter and just scaled that part of the logo up, essentially simplifying it down. And I think it works quite well because it still looks like a play button. It kind of looks like a sound wave or like a sound form wave in its like real simple form. And like I just said, it looks like a play button as well without being too sort of dead literal, or just using the first initial of the company name. So once I'd simplified the logo to use about half the lines that I'd first drawn, I thought that looked a lot nicer, so I scaled it up and started putting it to work next to some text. I wanted at least one of my options to use a slab serif font, just as a sort of like a throwback to their old logo. And I found this font, it was called Rocket, R-O-K-K-I-T-T, and I thought that worked quite well. But I did end up doing quite a lot of manual adjustments to it because I wanted to round out the like sharp corners on there. And that was to match it up with the icon because it looked a little bit sharp and edgy compared to this sort of like rounded and curved sort of like smooth icon I had. So there was a little bit of a contrast there. And after a little bit of fiddling around with spacing, I thought they worked together pretty well. Okay then, Rebrand gang, just before I show you them final options, I wanted to remind you to press that little button up here and vote for your favourite, then head straight down to the comments below and let me know why that was your favourite and what you might do to make it better. If you like this video, please remember to press like. If you want to see a video like this every single week, press subscribe and put the little bell on to get notifications so you're the first to watch each week. Okay then, Rebrand gang, let's see them final options.